What is happening, good people? We are here to record Macro Dirt Podcast number 38 with my man Bob Iacchino and Jared D's Nuts Dillian. What's up, man?
What's
What's
up,
up,
chicken
guys?
chest?
How you guys doing?
Chicken
This is
chest.
the Black Shirt Club again. I love it.
Bearded black shirts and tattoos. So Bob, thank you for coming on.
Happy to do it.
Yeah, we know you as the co-founder of Path Trading Partners and
Mhm.
the co-host of the Futures Edge podcast with our friend Jim Iorio, who he just had on and is an absolute pisser to talk to. Tell me, what is your passion nowadays? What are you working hardest on in your day-to-day workflow type of thing?
So obviously the podcast, the Futures Edge Finance Unfiltered podcast has morphed. It was interesting how that started. Jimmy called me up and I realized something about Jimmy this morning. He is such a fucking nards breaker. He's such a ball breaker. He's just like, I looked at one of his X posts or tweets, whatever we want to call them in this forum last night. And he posts something he knows people will respond to, and he knows it'll upset him. And then he responds for like 45 minutes, and then he just goes dark. Like you see no more responses of him. And I just see his deviant little face just cracking up that people are still churning in the comments like that. And he's just not saying anything. And I'm like, he's just a ball breaker. That's all he is. And I mean, he's more than that, but the show with him has been a blast. The way that it started, basically he called me up and he said a large client that we share in different companies, right? We both share the client. He said they told him he should start a podcast. And he said, I really can't do it alone. He said, I need somebody detail-oriented and anal. And who else do I know like that but Bob? And he called me. And he said, so Bobby, I've been asked to do this podcast. Maybe these guys will sponsor it if it's good. Well, they never came back and sponsor it, but we just had so much fun talking to people. And we decided right away that it was going to be guest focused. We're going to have guests every single week and talk markets. And then from there, it morphed into probably 75% markets, probably 15 to 20% policy as they apply to markets. And also some health and wellness. We've had some really well-known doctors on there, carnivore doctors and cold plunge doctors. And one of my favorites is a guy named Dr. Robert Lufkin, who wrote the book, The Lies I Taught in Medical School, which is a great book. Another guy, Dr. Sean Baker, who's been on the carnivore diet for like 9 years. And he's 58 years old with no TRT and steroids. He's built like a linebacker. And so the podcast has been probably the most fun thing I've done. But we again have more than one mutual client. I have clients with my partner in Path Trading Partners, Mike Arnold, and it's just markets all day and then talking to people I like to talk to. It's gotten kind of fun.
Oh, that's great. Well, thanks for taking the time to be with us and sharing your background with everybody. You're definitely one of us in terms of the people that I like to communicate with and stuff on FinTwit.
Yeah, appreciate that.
Yeah. We're gonna go through 3 rapid fire questions just to get to know you personally. Then we're gonna go on to markets. Who's a hero of yours?
In reality, my dad, biggest one, immigrant. Came here, was a busboy at a restaurant in Chicago, and when he passed away, he had a house with 5 bedrooms and a 3-car garage. So my dad never read or wrote English his whole life.
Really, all Italian, I assume.
Yeah,
tremendous. From what part of Italy?
Southern Italy, Calabria.
Greatest
125th Street.
the home of the greatest salami on the planet. All right,
What's the highlight in your life?
Wait, what's the highlight? Go.
No, I spoke Italian before I spoke English. So I was the kid with the accent going to school with the sandwich with the funny bread with no mayonnaise on it.
Oh my God, I could relate to that. I had my grandparents who only spoke Italian lived in my house downstairs from me through college when my grandfather passed away.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a similar experience. I mean, I used to bring eggplant Parmesan sandwiches to school. And when you're sitting at a table of kids eating bologna sandwiches on white bread with the crust cut off, you raise a few eyebrows, right?
Yeah, and like my mad Jared, I'm still addicted to this stuff. So,
are you?
Oh yeah, 6, 7 of them a day, easy.
Oh my God, you guys are caffeine whores. How many of those do you have a day, JD?
Yeah, usually 3 or 4.
Wow, man, I have my my Black Bear vanilla cold brew in the morning. I just have one. I can't
I have
stand
one of these, and then I take a mind-blowing dump.
really too much
Yeah.
information, but thank you. Really good. Really good. Bob, let's finish these last two off. What's a
Yeah.
highlight of your life?
Right now, my wife.
Awesome.
Yeah, she's out of this world. I don't deserve her by any stretch.
Beautiful thing to say about somebody.
Yeah.
Awesome. What do you hope for?
What do I hope for? That the Bears' offensive line is going to get better, and I can find out if we actually have a quarterback or not. That's it. That's where I'm at. That's every waking moment that I'm not doing work, thinking about markets, talking to people I like you two, or going somewhere with my wife. I'm thinking about the Bears. It's awful.
I love it that we land right at the heart of a Chicago sportsman when asking what he hopes for. That's beautiful. All right, well, let's get into the markets now, and let's start jousting because I'm hoping that we're going to have some good arguments and some back and forth here. JD, why don't you kick us off on what you think of the tape and start wherever you want.
Gold.
Gold, holy shit.
Yeah.
Gold is running like an antelope.
I mean,
gold,
you can have three positions in a bull market: long, very long, or flat.
You're asking me what my three positions are?
Yeah, what are they?
Gold, to me, I actually just did a spot on Yahoo Finance yesterday that was gold focused. And the first question they asked me, did it have more room to run? And I said, it does. But I am expecting a second sideways correction in gold. Now, we had one basically November through January, November of last year through January of this year, where we had this sideways correction after a big bull run. I'm expecting a second one of those before we get a downward move. I put gold on as my number one most needed long by people in November of 2022. It's still my most secure long. It's not my largest position, but it's my most secure long, the one that I don't look at much. Now, a lot of it has to do with me having a huge profit in it, right? But also, I try to look at scenarios where gold turns around for good, and they're difficult to find for me. So I like gold. I think the Fed hasn't realized yet that they probably shouldn't do the 4 rate cuts that the CME Fed Watch Tool has priced in right now. I don't think they should do them, quite frankly, but I think they're probably going to do at least 2 or 3 of them, which to me, you stay long gold.
Very good. JD, what's your recent take on it right now, man? We're just long to long out the wazoo still. Do you make a sale, or is this the breakout for $1,000 run?
Yeah, this is the breakout for $1,000 run. Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, the funny thing is that gold sentiment got a little hot like 2 or 3 weeks ago. There was a correction, and I thought it would be a deeper correction. I think I even said on the podcast it would go down to like 2750. It just got fucking gobbled up and new highs and through 3,000. Made a couple of attempts at 3,000, broke through. It's trading like 30-30 right now. And the funny thing is that, you know, I've been through this before with gold. Like back in 2011, when it got up to 1,900, it was a frenzy. You had like all these people buying shit off of AppMex. You had these cash for gold stores. You had all these commercials. Like that was a mania. We just broke through 3,000. What's that sound you hear? Nothing.
It's
That's what's crazy about this, right? This has a long way to go.
That is a good point. And just to share from literally 2011, sales traders were trading gold coins in the street back then. It was so fucking popular, no joke. And so now my only take on it is, you know, I had somebody in my Slack channel asking me like, TG, how do you approach this gold trade? And JD, my response was very much like you. I'm like, look, I'm long it and I can't really trade it. I'm just kind of watching the death of fiat currency and watching. That's why gold goes up, you know?
Yep.
And so
now, let me ask you guys something. They asked me on Yahoo yesterday, and my answer was we basically got a synthetic gold backing of all currencies right now. And they basically said, you know, there's no real backing to gold other than people like gold for 3,000 years. Do you think I'm nuts to say that we almost have a synthetically backed currency situation, regardless of what the currency is with what gold's doing?
Well, I mean, so the U.S. has like 4,700 tons of gold theoretically in Fort Knox. And even though like dollars
Theoretically.
aren't convertible into gold anymore, like it is sort of, like you said, synthetically backed by gold.
Yeah.
Except if the dollar was to be backed by gold, then gold would have to be at like 19,000 an ounce.
19,000.
You
Right.
know, so like, and China is buying gold like they're going to the electric chair. Like that's one of the reasons we're through 3,000. Like they just keep buying it, and other EM central banks are buying it. I actually saw the other day that Belgium has $20 billion worth of gold, and they're thinking about selling it to pay for the war in Ukraine. And I'm like,
God. Oh, God.
Literally one of the 1,000 worst ideas I've ever heard. In my life. Holy shit. Who made that up? That's astounding, man. Let's talk about the S&P. 5,600 last.
So Monday, the price action. So we were up about 1% on Monday. Terrible price action, low volume, not impulsive, just a crappy rally. Like I'm like, this is not going to last. This is not going to last. So as of Tuesday, we've given back all those gains. I still think everybody said we had capitulation last week. We had that down 2.5% day, and everyone's like, it's capitulation. We got off too easy. We need one real hard capitulation day, which I think is going to come in the next couple weeks, and then we can talk about a bounce, right?
So I don't want to turn this into a patting myself on the back session because that would be embarrassing. I've been saying for about 3 months that we were going to get a 15 to 30% move lower in stocks. Now, it was based on the Trump administration having some success with what they talked about doing. And it was also based on the idea that they would actually win and then do what they seem to be doing right now. Tariffs, Doge, lay them all out. 2017, Trump tweeted a lot about the stock market. 2016, 2017. He hasn't really tweeted at all about the stock market. So anybody who thinks that this bothers him in the short term, I don't buy it. But in talking about how much we've gone, if you take the NASDAQ, for example, down about a little bit short of 14%, whether you're looking at the Qs or the NASDAQ futures. I'm on the same page as Jared. I think we need a little bit more. And then I think it's potentially a multi-generational buy, depending on what the reaction is. And the reason I say that is because if there's more success, cost cutting, less spending, firing of government workers, closing of some of these overzealous 3-letter agencies, right? I think Besant is going to go down as the best Treasury Secretary ever if he actually gets that stuff done. And then we potentially have lower yields. You're already seeing it building building starts, new home sales, all up the last few days with mortgage rates lower. I think mortgage rates continue lower. You had a death cross in the 3 major indices.
Mm-hmm.
Now, death crosses are crap indicators technically. Most of the reason is because the market tends to rally back up to the point where the 50 and the 200 crossed, which if you're looking at SPY, for example, somewhere around 572, and that's where the collapse comes from. This is why I think Jared is spot on. I think what's going to happen is we're going to get a little bit of a bounce, not today, but over the next few weeks, a little bit of a bounce back up into that, say, 572, 580 area in the SPY. And then the capitulation comes from there as we don't get follow through to the upside. And then we look for that buy.
That buy, like I agree with Bob. Like I think there's going to be a great buying opportunity out of this. Like I had somebody ask me this morning, like they bought the highs in the S&P and they're down like 10% on it, and they're like, "What do you do?" And I'm like, "Look, like the market's going to be higher 4 years from now.
Yeah,
like we're like the S&P is going to be like at 8,000 in 2028. You
Mm-hmm.
know, so
can I go?
Yeah, man.
All I could say is that I think the low is on the board, right? And the low happened last Monday, March 10th. And that was Monday that we came in after the JD Vance meme absolutely went berserk over the weekend.
Love that meme.
That is unbelievable meme. And we came in Monday, and the European belly aching on Twitter was raging, and they wailed on the S&P. We made the first VIX high of up near $30. S&P is pounding 5,600. Momentum is crashing. We've got this Mag 7 fire sale. We had the steepest low in the tick index, right? The tick index put in a minus 1,600 extreme low. That completed like a 4 out of 8 day cluster. We had Ari Fleischer coming online, being the voice of reason, saying, everyone relax. The S&P is down 4% of the year. If you can't take the heat, get out of the kitchen. And I'm like, it's amazing that this guy is the voice of reason. I retweeted him. And now I think that between now into the FOMC, into the weekend, we're still going to see a VIX melt. And I welcome this trip back to retest that low that we made, because I think that I want to inhale the next move lower before we make a new low, because I think everybody like you guys is like, oh, there was no gap lower opening. There was no hysterical selling that we saw. Well, there was hysterical European selling. They were belly aching. People, like, you could tell who was talking to Europeans, and they were all, when somebody wrote, currently Trump is making the U.S. uninvestable, I literally like reflexively bought SPY. You know what I mean? I was like, okay, we'll talk about this moment in a couple of weeks. And so that's where I am now. And I think the next 300 to 500 S&P points is definitely higher. And I think the next 200 are probably higher too. So that's my stance right now.
I'll sell it to you at 300 higher.
We got a market by Bobby Mochaccino. Let's go.
I think there's a minimum target. Let's take the SPY as the example of 542. That's where I think it's going. And the low so far that I'm seeing on my screen here on March 10th, as you mentioned, or I should say the week of March 10th, that low is 549. So that's not a big stretch. But considering the rally back we've had, I think we need that second wave lower, because these one-time sell-offs, they're either just a correction and they're not related to anything fundamental. I think this one's related to something fundamental.
It is, and I think that it's all over. The sell-off tire tracks are all over the screen. Yeah. And it just fits with my sort of, narrative that Trump never said a word about the stock market because he knew the tariff talk was going to have this kind of an effect. I think that that's why he threw it so many curveballs in terms of, you heard everybody saying, oh, he's throwing tariffs out. Now he's canceling them. Now he's adjusting them. And everybody was bitching and moaning.
They're so dumb when they say that shit.
Right? It's just like, well, whatever. I mean, it's dumb that he says it while the market's open, granted, but he's going to. Mm-hmm. And if you don't want to be in the market that he's talking through, then get flat and zip it.
Yep.
That's the only thing. There's a whole market for you to hit bids and take offers out there and express your displeasure with what's going on. Short the S&P. Sell your house and buy SPY puts, bro. Do whatever you want to do. But
I happen to know personally down here the CEO of a fairly large company that we probably all use. And he said to me that he chuckles to himself anytime, like let's call them the Bloomberg anchors, the CNN, CNBC anchors say, oh, the CEOs don't know how to plan. He goes, I've planned for the next 18 months ago. He goes, and this was all in our conversation, that this may happen and it may go this way. It may be volatile in terms of tariff talk. Tariffs may be on, they may not be on. He goes, we're not looking at this going, oh, he's taking them off. Quick, turn the ship. He goes, we don't do it like that.
Mm. Well, I like the fact that Mag 7 has been the leader in this fire sale. I like the fact that most of them are pounding into 200-day moving average support, give or take. And that's why I think that the long-only plain vanilla buyers that are the ones that are VWAPing buy all day through all of this stuff, they're going to run out of stock to buy. Meaning the stock for sale is going to run out before they get filled in on their bids, and the market's going to go up from here. That's just my opinion. I could be wrong. Do we need to talk about bonds or the dollar at all before we go off markets? Do you guys have
bonds are pretty dead. Dollar is consolidating here. Yeah.
This is another reason why I can get friendly to the stock market here, is because there's been no expression of risk in the bond market. You know, we had the cupcake VIX rally to 30 and back.
I will say credit is starting to fall apart here. I put that in my newsletter today.
Yeah.
Spreads are blowing out, especially in the triple C's, up about 100 basis points or more. I think I even said on an old podcast, like if credit starts to widen, like that's a very bad sign. So.
Yeah. Yep. Good point. Aren't you a triple C cup, JD? Just kidding. All right, let's get off markets. We know we're getting itching to get off.
Dude,
markets.
I have moves.
You got to hit the gym, man. You got to hit you got to fight Father Time. You can't just let him beat you up. I know Bob stays in shape. Bob, what do you do to stay in shape?
You want to know in the kitchen or in the gym? I mean, my brother was a champion amateur power lifter when we were kids.
Oh, that's something.
So I've been lifting weights with him since I was 15 years old.
You've been lifting everything that's not nailed down your whole life?
God. My brother was just like, he was just nuts. He had a bad temper, and that's how he expressed it. But he taught me to lift weights when I was 15, and I've been on and off lifting weights since then. I like to think mostly on, but I'm also an idiot. I end up with injuries. I got run over by a truck on my bicycle down here a little while ago. Big freaking monster. No, it wasn't that big of a truck. I'm exaggerating like Jimmy does, but it was a big 4-wheel drive truck. And, the guy, everybody told me I should have sued the guy. But the poor guy was just trying to go to work, and I was crossing against the light. So I ended up with an injury. He takes me out of the gym for 6 months, and then I'm back in the gym. Also, I eat almost exclusively carnivore. I eat steak, eggs, butter, tallow. That's it.
JD, you can get down with that, right?
Get down with what?
Eating nothing but steak and eggs.
I could do that. Yeah.
Dude, that is magical. That is,
it is.
I'm talking 38 pounds off. I'm going to show you guys something funny. While you're thinking of what else we got to talk about, I got to find it. But
I just launched the hand shuttle.
What?
Not sure I know what that means.
Roll out some sheet meat.
What?
I don't know what that means either.
What are we talking about, JD?
You roughing up the suspect?
That I know what it means. That I understand. There's the bell.
I want to keep moving right now. I want to keep moving. Bob, if you we'll let you find what you're looking for.
Yeah.
But we had an audience request say you guys should talk about, best and worst dates in your lives and things like that. And I thought about it. I didn't have many good stories. I have one, and if you guys have any good ones, I'd be anxious to hear them. And who wants to start with a good or a bad date story?
I'll start.
Go ahead, JD.
So I was a senior in high school, and I needed a date for prom, right? And I was going to ask out the prettiest girl in our class, but I was too late. Another guy asked her out first. I missed her. I missed it by like a day. She was in my economics class, and I missed her by a day. So I don't have a date, and I'm at the mall with my mom, and we're in this department store called Filene's.
I know Filene's.
And so, like, if you've ever been like with your mom when she's like shopping for clothes, it's the most boring thing ever. I'm sitting in a chair, and this girl walks by, and I'm like, holy shit, who is that? And she had this name tag on that said Lynn. So I jumped out of the chair. I drove to a florist. I bought a bouquet of roses. I came back to the store, and I said, I went to the customer service desk, and I said, this is for Lynn. And they're like, oh, she went home for the day. So I wrote on a little card. I wrote my number. The next day, she called me. I'm like, let's go on a date. Let's go out to like the Gondolier in New London. So we go on this date. She's 19 years old. I guess I'm 18. She's like a year older than me. She just broke up with her boyfriend, who was a cop. She was going out with a cop at 19 years old. She takes out of her purse a pack of cigarettes, right? And she starts telling me all this like trashy, like white trash stuff that she does. And like, there's like this culture clash here. Like, I'm going to a service academy, and she's working in a department store, 19, and dating cops. And like, we're not getting along at all. So we go to the movies. I forget what the hell movie we saw. We went back to her house. I went in for the hug, and she just slammed the door in my face.
Oh man, cold one.
All right. The
Cold
first
one.
thing I want to do is show you guys what I wanted to show you. This is before and after carnivore. Now, the before picture, I have no idea why my wife took it. I must have been saying something stupid, and I don't know what it was. And then the after picture, I happened to be wearing the same clothes. My wife said, I think I've got a picture of you wearing these exact same clothes. And then when she found it, she posed me in the same way and put them side by side. So I don't know if you can see this.
Oh, we're gonna have you send that right in, and we're gonna post that, and we'll have Braden post that for us. Yeah, you look like a little chunker there, and now you look shredded.
Yeah.
I love it. How much would you weigh? What was your max? What was your peak?
It was in Chicago it was 213. Here in Florida it was 208. And now I range between like 175 and 180 right now. So it was almost 40 pounds.
You got to get those numbers up. JD's got
those
you
are rookie
blown out.
numbers in this.
Those are
business,
rookie
man.
numbers. Yeah. Even I tipped over 2.25 once before.
Well,
Dude, I'm at 240.
I hit 223 in the early 2000s.
I got you.
But that was just all.
JD at 240 looks like Tubby the whale.
I'm just saying, eating pure steak and eggs like that.
Oh yeah,
it just works. It just works.
It's great.
And some people say, "Well, I couldn't do that forever." It's strange how you actually crave steak after you do it for like 3-4 weeks. You don't crave anything else.
Yeah.
The date thing. All right.
Yeah. Go. Let's get back on topic
I have
here.
a similar story to Jared's, but I won't finish this one. I was probably 22. And I was in a place called the Snuggery in the suburbs of Chicago. And there was this beautiful girl walking around selling roses, right? That was her job, to walk around selling roses. So I bought one. And then I looked at her and I go, "When do you get off work?" I gave her the one I bought. I go, "This is for you." I said, "When do you get off work?" She goes, "When I'm done selling all these." I'm like, "Oh, I'll take all of them." And I bought all of them. And then I gave them all to her. And then she hung out with me the rest of the night. That's the slickest thing I ever did.
Smart.
My bad date story is actually with my current wife.
Oh, really?
So I asked my current wife out for 18 months. She said no for 18 months straight. And every time I'd go into the restaurant she worked at, I'm like, "Come on, you're going to go out to it?" "No, I'm not." "All right, well, I'll see you in a couple of days." And I'd come back, go there again and ask her out again. So finally she says yes. And she's like, "Well, where are you going to take me?" And I'm like, "Don't you worry your pretty little head. Don't worry about it." I said, "I'll even let you meet me so that you don't feel like you're stuck with me." So I send her the address. Don't tell her what it is. Place in Chicago called La Serena Clandestino, which is like a tapas place, right? And she meets me there. And as we're walking in, I go, "This place has the absolute best beef empanadas. You never tried it before." And she just kind of goes. And I'm like, "What? Fuck, you're a vegetarian." And she goes, "You haven't listened to a word I've said over a year and a half." I'm like, "Oh, no, I swear I have." I hadn't listened to a word of it. I was just looking at her.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So then I went to the bar and I'm like, "You gotta let me talk to the chef." And I give him like $200 to make some with mushrooms in it, just so that we had something to eat. And she's just dying laughing the whole time. She's like, "You are the idiot I thought." She thought it was funny, so it worked in my favor. But I was like, "God damn it, really? Fucking moron."
Next topic, JD. I want to talk about one thing that's in the trading realm before we hang up, because I have a lot of people that always ask me about this. How do you guys approach trading drawdowns on a position?
Well, so the first thing I always tell people when they're active traders is if they don't understand position sizing versus the volatility in the asset you're going to trade, they should probably slow down their progress in terms of the amount of trades they're doing. Every trade I do has the exact same amount of risk in theory, in terms of dollars, and the exact same amount of profit, give or take, because I'll do like 1.1 to 1 reward to risk ratio. And then if I have a particular trigger to enact a trailing stop on a trade, that's when I get these outsized gains that otherwise normally wouldn't have, but they're obviously on smaller position sizes because I'm trailing out as I go. I always operate with a target 100% of the time. I never leave a trade on with no target. But the thing about it is a target for me is a place where an action is required, not necessarily a place where you exit a trade. right? I might even add to it. So drawdowns for me aren't really that frequent. Not that I don't have them. Of course I have them. I just they build up and I almost ignore them because my position sizes is dropping as I'm trading. So when I go into these losing streaks, let's say I had a 2% loss, then I had a 2% loss, then I had a 2% loss. But the first 2% loss was $1,000, and the second 2% loss was $1,800, and the next one was $1,600. And they kind of wind themselves down and don't actually bother me. So I don't really do anything. I just continue. I feel like my job with my particular process is to put on every good trade I see, period, and just continue to use position size to either scale the dollar risk down or scale it up, depending on if I'm in a losing streak or winning streak.
Interesting strategy. JD?
I mean, I have a very different style of trading. Like my whole thing is to pick tops and bottoms, which people tell you to never do. And I do it and I'm good at it. It works for me.
Mm-hmm.
So I really focus on having the perfect entry points so that I don't have drawdowns, right? But occasionally I do have drawdowns. I'm just like Gartman. I never add to a losing position, right? I'll add to a winning position, but I won't add to a losing position.
Same here.
So if I take a position and I'm down 1 or 2% on it, I don't add to it, right? And I just wait. And if it goes in my favor, then I add to it. That's pretty much it. So part of this process is sometimes you have to decide when you are wrong, right? Like what is your stop out point? Like when the market is moved against you enough, how do you decide when you're wrong? And that's when I use the chart. Like if it violates some support level or I say, okay, if it goes below this level, then I'm definitely wrong, then I'm getting out. But I've only risked 1 unit, like it's not like I've risked 3 units. Another thing that I'm kind of terrible at is that if a trade moves in my favor, I get really fucking excited and I started adding to it really fast. You know what I mean? I'm like, yes, I'm making I blow it up.
And then you have the drawdown.
Yeah, then I have a drawdown, right? So one of the things I've been working on is to be more patient on adding to a winning position, So
yep. Yeah, it all comes. I'm a similar way where and a similar way to both of you, and different from both of you. But my trades always kind of like Bob look the same. They're the kind of same risk reward, the same playing the same chart pattern for the same kind of things to happen. There's a couple different variations of it, but I'm usually in terms of when you're in a trade, I'm always looking. I have my stop loss below the market, and I'm always looking to bring my stop loss to break even. And I don't mind saying, okay, if this goes my way and then comes back to break even, then I'm happy to get out if it's, at a smart chart point. But I'm always kind of like drawdowns from the maximum winning position is always a point where I'm moving my trailing stop up toward to meet the position anyway. So that's like every trade that I do has a drawdown from max profit, because I rarely feed into strength unless there's a hysterical gap open lower. I always get stopped out of things when I think the time is right, like below the 50-day or below the 100-day, because then I get the option to get back in when things get dire. So
that's. Can I ask you guys? I've been running this informal poll for about 31 years. Well, maybe not that long, but I think most traders, most active investors, whichever one you guys classify yourselves as, are much more upset about profits that turn into a loss or profits that aren't maximized than they are about actual straight off the boat losses. I've seen traders just go completely nuts that they could have made 10 grand and they only made 4.
No, I don't ever complain about a drawdown in profits into taking profit. Like a drawdown, say you make whatever, 20,000, just pick a number, $20,000 you made on this trade. You're up on this trade at the max. And then I get stopped out and it turns into a plus 12K trade or something like that. Like I don't ever get upset that, oh shit, I could have been up 20K. Like it's part of my system. It's part of my process. It's in my, trading machine, and when it spits out, it spits me out, and that's the market. It's the same way as a blackjack table, Bob.
Yeah.
When you're up money, you're winning money, and if you want to walk away a winner at a blackjack table, you say, okay, when I'm up only 10 grand, I'm going to get up and split. You know what I mean? And you say, okay, this 10 grand is staying in my pocket, and that's when I stop playing. And when you're playing with the money that's above and beyond that, it's all for fun, trying to get to the up 100 grand day. Because you never know when you say, okay, this is the 10 grand that I'm going to keep. Okay, how do I know not one time that I don't have 50K in my pocket that I'm going to keep? And I'm still playing with the house money. So that's kind of the way I look at a trade that way. I think it's the same exact metaphor.
You're in the 13%, Jared.
Wow, really?
Yeah, about 13% in this long survey I've been doing.
Very interesting.
What does that mean, 13%?
About 13% of the traders will say, no, none of it bothers me. And the other, whatever it is, 87% will go, yeah, it actually bothers me if I had 10 grand and then I only have 4. But it doesn't mean that they act on it. It just means that they're like, yeah, that drives me crazy.
Where are you on that, JD?
I run into that a lot because that's another thing I'm working on. I tend to take profits too quickly, right? So I'll buy something at 100, I sell it at 115, then it goes to 125. I'm like, fuck. Like,
yeah, that's what I mean. Now he's successful, but it still bothers him. Yeah. So the way that I fix that, well, first of all, I love Jared talking about never increasing risk. I think that should be every active trader's Bible. They should write that down, stick it on their computer, never increase risk on a trade, only reduce it. That should be a freaking rule. And when you're adding to winners, you're not really increasing risk. You're increasing potential profitability for a trade that you already have profits on, right? But that's the way I look at it anyway. But this thing about that, the only way that I fixed myself, my headspace with that, was to think about like leaving a restaurant, right? When I leave a restaurant, I grab my doggy bag, no one else's. So I look at myself as taking a portion of a move, and that's all I'm owed, right? It's probably going to go higher, probably was going to go way higher, but it's time to move on. I try not to look at a chart. I was long Palantir, and I got out 3 days before the high. And then it went higher for 2 more days, and I didn't even know. I had a friend call me up and say, yeah, you're getting killed on that Palantir, aren't you? I'm like, no, why? I got out like 4 or 5 days ago. And it turns out it had started to collapse with the broader market, or really leading the broader market.
Yeah, man. I mean, if you ever had a trade that was I guess I handle it. I handle most of trading like a floor trader, where when you have a position on, and you get to your full size position and it goes your way, and it's somewhere within the realm of a smart sale, like that's when I start to make sale. Like, what are you waiting for? You know what I mean? Like, you put this thing on, it's now going your way. It's like, okay, you'll start taking some profit. It's okay to leave some on, but it's like, okay, this is what the trade is about. You got it to go your way. Now you feed into the trade and provide liquidity. So that's why I don't really ever have any kind of a sore or anxious feeling about, being up a lot and cashing out only up a little. I mean, if you're in the black on the trade, you should be thanking your lucky trading stars that it worked out in the first place. At some level, if you can only be right 55% of the time, then you got to figure out how to make the most with those, right? That's like the Druckenmiller rule. There's the position size right there. When you got confidence, make sure you're big enough.
It's like a bad beard trim. I mean, it'll grow back. You could just retrim it. It's fine.
Yeah, true. Good point. Well, that was a good discussion. I'm glad that we hashed that out. I hope that people took a little bit away from that, and I was glad to do the U-turn from the bad date story.
What about good dates?
Yeah. So you want to go? If you go ahead, if you got one, you can go ahead.
Well, my good date is actually with my current wife. So I had my worst date with my current wife and my best date with my current wife, which I think sort of like sides with the longevity of this particular marriage. Yeah, she said no to me for 18 months because, in her words, she goes, "You were just another trader douchebag hitting on me at the bar." Which I thought was pretty accurate, right?
Yeah.
But then she ended up coming to a hockey game with me. I was in the bar waiting to go to the game, and I didn't have a date. And I said to her, I go, "Last chance. I mean, it's great tickets." And she turned to her boss and she goes, "The rush over?" He goes, "Yeah, go ahead." Her boss liked me.
Oh, nice.
And so she came to the game with me, and she said, watching me at the hockey game made me realize I wasn't a douchebag. I was just an idiot. She could deal with an idiot. So I consider that. But at the risk of sounding like I'm trying to convince myself of this, every time we get a little time together, it's just easy. I mean, she's just an easy human being. I was talking to a mutual friend of ours a couple of days ago. This woman named Julia, and Julia just basically said, "Yeah, you won the lottery, and there's no world where you deserve her." I'm like, "Yeah, we're on the same page on that."
I don't know if we can improve on that. I think that's where we end the podcast right there. That was absolutely beautiful. You sound happy. People should like and subscribe just on that feel good story alone. Macro Dirt Podcast for life. Bob, tell everyone where they can find you.
Easiest place is just go to my X, formerly Twitter, which is Bob_Iacchino. And also, if you don't already subscribe to our podcast, first of all, if you don't subscribe to this, you should subscribe, hit like, do all that stuff. Because your show, by the way, is one of the best ones going. And I have a really, really strong feeling that you're going to explode and just go screaming past us in subscribers and views. But
Thank you for that vote of confidence.
But ours is Futures Edge Finance Unfiltered. We're going to launch a newsletter in very short order, and that newsletter is going to have trades with stops and targets and options alternatives to those trades, and it's going to be pretty darn detailed. So best way to find that is going to be to have already subscribed to the podcast. So
beautiful. Great. Yeah, exactly. Your podcast is one of my favorites. We check it out all the time. I'm glad to have healthy competition out there in the podcast space. You guys are inspiring, and we kind of lay the groundwork for the direction that each other goes. And it's a lot of fun to kind of take our own path and be right beside you guys in this market. So
yeah, I'm going to pitch a couple of super shows right now with the four of us where we just frickin' riff. Yeah. Just go nuts.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
That'd be awesome. Yeah.
Great idea. We should do that. And we will. With that, something to look forward to, a beautiful feel-good story from Bob. Hasta la vagina, everybody.
Hasta la vagina.
Cheers, guys.